She asked for a piece of cloth, but what she uncovered beneath the merchant's stall left the entire market in silence. A hidden man, a buried truth, and a woman who had nothing, but changed everything. This is not just a story. It's a revelation you won't forget. Stay till the end. The wind howled through the narrow alley. Dust rose from the uneven ground, swirling around cracked walls. A faint smell of burning coal lingered in the air. The sky above was the color of old metal, heavy and gray. She walked slowly, her bare feet aching on the cold stone. Her tattered shawl clung to her shoulders, barely shielding her from the chill. Her name was Safiya, a widow, a mother of two, and today she had nothing to feed them. The market buzzed with noise. Vendors shouted over each other, calling out prices. Children darted between stalls, laughter echoing off the buildings. But Safiya heard none of it. Only the pounding of her heart. Only the growl in her stomach. She reached the edge of the cloth bazaar. Bright silks fluttered like flags in the wind. Colors danced before her eyes, crimson, gold, sapphire blue. Her fingers trembled as she stepped forward. The merchant's stall stood larger than the rest. Polished wood counters. Brass lanterns hanging like jewels. He sat cross-legged, counting coins, his eyes sharp beneath a trimmed beard. She approached him with lowered gaze. "Peace be upon you," she whispered. Her voice cracked like old parchment. The merchant looked up. "Peace," he replied curtly. His eyes swept over her worn dress, her sunken cheeks. She hesitated. "My children have no clothes for the winter," she said. Her voice was steady now. "Could you spare a piece of cloth? Just a small one?" He raised an eyebrow. "This is not a place for beggars," he said. "Cloth is for those who pay." Safiya stood still. The wind pushed at her back. She looked into his eyes, searching for a flicker of mercy. The merchant turned away. He reached for a bolt of velvet, rich and dark like midnight. Without a word, he began wrapping it in paper. Another customer waited beside her, heavy with gold bangles and perfumes. Safiya's presence felt like a shadow between wealth and trade. Her stomach twisted. Her throat burned. But she stayed. Then came a sound. A deep groan. The stall's wooden frame creaked sharply. The merchant glanced up. His expression changed. Safiya turned. Behind her, a boy stood. No older than 10. His hand clutched her torn shawl. His eyes were wide with terror. He pointed to the merchant's table. "Something moved," he said. "Under there." The merchant scoffed. "A rat, perhaps," he muttered. But his voice lacked certainty. He lifted the edge of the cloth-covered table. The lantern light flickered and revealed something unexpected. Safiya stepped back. The boy gasped. Even the woman in gold dropped her bag. Beneath the table, hidden in shadows, a pair of eyes stared back. Not animal. Human. Frightened. Wild. The merchant dropped the cloth. The eyes vanished. He stood frozen, lips parted. Safiya's breath caught in her chest. She had seen those eyes before. Once, in the ruins near the river. A man disfigured. Cast out by his own kin. They said he had vanished. But now. The merchant's hand trembled. Sweat beaded on his brow. Safiya whispered, "Who is under your stall, cloth merchant?" He did not answer. The air thickened. The market's noise faded, swallowed by tension. The boy took another step forward. He crouched, peering beneath the cloth again. What he saw next made him stumble back. His voice was a whisper, barely audible. "He is bleeding." Safiya knelt. Her fingers touched the stone. It was wet. Sticky. A trail of crimson led from the hidden figure to the edge of the merchant's stall. The merchant backed away. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Safiya looked up at him, and in her gaze, there was no fear. Only a quiet, growing question. What secret had he tried to bury beneath silk and gold? The merchant's lips quivered. His eyes darted toward the crowd. None had noticed yet. Not fully. Safiya rose slowly. The blood on her fingertips had begun to dry. A darker red against her pale skin. "You knew he was there," she said. Her voice was no longer soft. It was steady. Sharp. The merchant shook his head. No, he said too quickly. I do not know this man. But the look in his eyes betrayed him. They flickered with something deeper.
Guilt. Fear. The boy pointed again.
Why is he hurt? The merchant stepped forward, blocking their view. It is none of your concern, he snapped.
This is my stall.
My goods. Go now. But Safiya did not move. And neither did the boy. From beneath the table, the figure groaned again. A raw, broken sound. Like a man who had swallowed too many screams. Safiya crouched low. Can you hear me? She asked. Who did this to you? A pause. Then a whisper. Help me. The merchant grabbed her arm. Step away, he hissed.
She stared at his hand.
Then at his face. And said nothing. But her silence was louder than any cry. A small crowd had begun to gather. Curious eyes. Idle shoppers. What is happening? Someone asked. Safiya straightened. Her voice rose. There is a man. Hurt. Under the stall. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers buzzed like flies. Two men pushed through. One wore a leather apron. The other a robe marked with a healer's emblem. Move aside, the healer said. His voice cut clean through the noise. The merchant hesitated, then stepped back, jaw clenched. The cloth was lifted. The man beneath lay curled, blood-soaked and barely conscious. His face swollen. One eye shut. Ribs visible beneath torn clothes. The healer knelt beside him. How long has he been here? Safiya answered. Long enough to bleed through stone. The merchant tried to speak. Tried to explain. But no words could undo what was now exposed. A murmur rose. Anger. Disgust. The woman with gold bangles stepped forward. Who is he? She asked. And what has the cloth merchant done? Safiya did not take her eyes off the merchant. She could see it now. In his posture. In the way his hands would not stop trembling. The man under the table was not just a stranger. There was history here.
Dark.
Rotten. The merchant finally spoke. His voice dry and cracked. He tried to steal from me. But the wounded man groaned again. And this time he managed 2 words. You liar. The crowd fell silent. Even the birds above seemed to stop in mid-flight. You liar, the man repeated, louder this time. Safiya stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the merchant. Who is he? She asked again quietly. This time, she was not asking out of curiosity. She was demanding truth. The merchant's mouth opened, then closed. His chest rose and fell in shallow bursts. I told you, he said. A thief. He came at night. The wounded man coughed. A harsh, wet sound that stained his lips red. I worked for him, he said. 7 years. No pay. No name. He kept me hidden. Gasps again. Whispers turned into voices. Slavery. Here, in our market? The merchant raised his hands, as if to push the truth away. He is mad, he shouted. Do not listen to him. But no one moved. No one looked away. Safiya felt something burn in her chest. A deep, pulsing heat. Not just anger. Justice. You beat him, she said. You locked him beneath your stall. And still you turned away a woman asking for cloth. The merchant's face twisted. I feed families, he barked. My trade feeds the mosque, the poor. Not him, the boy said suddenly. His voice was clear, firm. You did not feed him. The healer looked up. He is near death, he said. If we had not found him today. Safiya turned to the crowd. Her voice did not need to rise. It carried. How many others has he hidden? No one answered. But the looks on their faces said enough.
Doubt. Fear.
And then resolve. A man stepped forward. He was older, beard streaked with white. I bought cloth here last month, he said. I thought his prices were steep. But now I see the cost was paid in blood. More people came forward. Stories spilled. Whispers of strange noises at night. Of bruises on the merchant's former apprentice. Of a locked door behind the stall no one was allowed to open. The merchant tried to run. But hands reached out. Firm. Unforgiving. Safiya did not move. She stood rooted. strong, as others surrounded him. And beneath the lantern light, the wounded man was lifted from the cold ground, carried gently. Finally seen, Safiya looked down at her blood-stained fingers. And for the first time in days, she no longer felt invisible. The crowd parted for the healer and the men who carried the wounded worker. Their steps were slow, careful, but their faces held purpose, the kind that grows when silence is broken. Safiya followed behind, shawl fluttering in the rising wind. Children stopped playing. Vendors stopped shouting. Even the colors of the market seemed to dull for a moment. The merchant, now restrained by two men, was forced to his knees. He no longer shouted. He no longer denied. He only stared at the stone beneath him, as if hoping it would open and swallow him whole. A woman in the crowd spoke. "I worked for him once, sewing hems. He cut my pay when I asked for time to pray." Another added, "He beat his nephew, sent him away for speaking out." The voices grew. Wounds once whispered now screamed into the open air. Safiya stopped near the edge of the stall. She looked back. The rich fabrics still fluttered in the wind, but they no longer shimmered with beauty. They looked like curtains hiding rot. She turned to the boy who had seen the eyes first. He stood still, watching everything. "You did well," she said softly. "You saw what others ignored." He smiled a little unsure, then looked toward the man being taken to safety. "Will he be all right?" he asked. Safiya did not answer right away. She watched the cloth merchant lower his head, not from prayer, but from shame. "Now he will be," she said, because someone finally saw him. In the distance, the call to prayer echoed from the minaret. It rose gently over the rooftops, washing the streets in sound and light. The people began to move again, not with haste, but with a strange stillness in their steps. Something had changed. A veil lifted, a truth exposed. Safiya turned toward home, her steps no longer slow. She still had nothing in her hands, but in her heart, she carried something far greater.
Dignity.
Witness. And the beginning of a new story. The alley she once feared now felt different beneath her feet. Each step echoed softly, but not with hunger or shame. With strength. The boy walked beside her, silent but alert, his small hands occasionally brushing against the edge of her shawl, as if seeking reassurance it was all real. At the corner of the lane, a neighbor stood watching. An old man, usually silent. Today, he raised a hand in greeting. Safiya nodded. He said nothing, but the look in his eyes spoke volumes. Respect. Recognition. She passed the mosque steps. Warm light spilled from the open door. Men gathered there, paused, then looked at her. And a few lowered their eyes. Not in pity, in guilt, in thought. For years, her face had been just another part of the street. Invisible, faded, but now it held weight. Now it had voice. At the door of her small home, she stopped. The wooden frame groaned as she pushed it open. Two small faces peered from within. Her children, eyes wide with worry, bellies still empty. She knelt, arms open. They ran to her, silent and fast, their little bodies trembling against hers. "I have nothing to give you," she said softly. "But today the world heard me." The boy lingered at the doorway. He looked in, uncertain. Safiya beckoned him inside. "You are part of this now," she said. "Come in. Rest." He hesitated, then stepped across the threshold. His eyes scanned the small room. Bare walls, a mat on the floor, a kettle with no fire beneath it. Still, he smiled, because for the first time, this place felt full. Safiya lit a small candle. The flame danced gently. It flickered but did not go out. In its light, they sat together. The widow,
The boy.
the children. Outside, the night deepened. But inside, a quiet glow bloomed, not of wealth, not of comfort, but of truth finally spoken, and the story that would not be silenced. The boy leaned back against the wall, arms folded over his knees. He said nothing, but his eyes followed the candlelight as it danced across the cracked ceiling. Safiya's daughter reached for his hand. She was too young to understand everything, but old enough to know what kindness looked like. He smiled at her, awkwardly. He had not smiled like that in a long time. Safiya poured the last of the water into 3 small cups. It was cold and thin, but she handed one to each child, as if it were a royal gift. "To share is to begin," she said softly. Her son nodded, though he barely sipped. The boy drank slowly, as if honoring the moment. Outside, the market sounds had faded. The stall with the silks was silent now. Empty. A hollow shell of lies. Safiya's mind returned to the merchant's face. How quickly power had crumbled under truth. How loudly silence had spoken when the crowd found its voice. She did not feel sorry for him, only for the years that passed where no one dared to ask. No one looked beneath the table. No one listened to a man buried in plain sight. Her fingers touched the dried blood at the edge of her sleeve. She had not washed it away.
Not yet.
It reminded her that pain had been seen today, and that pain had a witness. The boy looked at her then. "Will they come for him?" he asked. His voice was low, wary. He meant the cloth merchant.
"They will," she replied.
"Not just the law,
"But the people."
the ones who stood quiet too long. They will not be quiet anymore." He nodded, but his gaze drifted to the door, to the night beyond, as if still unsure that the world had truly changed. Safiya understood. Change does not arrive all at once. It moves slowly, like a whisper, like a woman asking for cloth with empty hands. She rose and pulled her shawl tighter around her. The candle's flame flickered. Its light stretched across their faces, soft but steady. Tomorrow there would be questions. Tomorrow there would be stories told in tea shops and prayer lines. But tonight there was only silence, and the sound of hearts beating in peace. Safiya sat beside her children, one on each side. She looked at the boy, now half asleep, and whispered, "You are safe here." Her voice held no doubt, and for the first time in many nights, the dark felt gentle, like a curtain, not a cage. And somewhere in that silence, a new story began to form.
Not one of sorrow,
but of rising. Morning came quietly. Soft light slipped through the cracks in the wooden shutters. Birdsong echoed in the alleyway, gentle and persistent. Safiya opened her eyes before the call to prayer. The children still slept, curled against her sides. The boy, too, slept soundly, a small smile on his lips. For the first time in months, her heart did not race with dread. Her mind did not spiral with worry. There was only stillness. She rose, careful not to wake them. At the small basin, she washed her face. The cold water stung, but it carried away the weight of yesterday.
Outside, the street had changed.
The merchant's stall stood empty, stripped of its bright silks. The lanterns gone. The polished wood dull in the rising sun. A notice hung on the post, sealed by the council. Justice, simple and clear. Neighbors greeted her as she passed. Some offered bread. One handed her a shawl, newly stitched. No one looked through her anymore. She returned home with enough food for her children. Not much, but more than she had dared to hope for just a day ago. The boy woke as the bread was being sliced. He sat up slowly, blinking into the light. Safiya handed him a piece. "You are welcome to stay," she said, "for as long as you need." He hesitated, then nodded, not because he was unsure, but because it had been a long time since anyone offered him anything without a price. They ate together in the quiet morning. No feast, no silver, just warm bread, soft hands, and eyes that finally saw one another. As the sun rose higher, the city stirred around them. Vendors opened shutters. Children laughed in the streets.
And Safiya,
once invisible, once voiceless, sat with her children and the boy beside her, holding not just bread, but dignity and the beginning of a better day. The story ends, but her strength remains. ***.